Time for another episode of Council Bluffs Today. I am Todd Studer. We are in the virtual studio today to visit with Liz Keller. She is the founder of Golden Concierge and also the founder of a nonprofit called Light the Way. Good to see you, Liz. Thanks for so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for being flexible doing this virtually.
Oh, not a problem at all. Plus, full disclosure, you're not in town right now. You're over in the center part of the state.
Yes, we are based out of Des Moines. However, we serve all 99 counties. So we like to be everywhere across Iowa.
Let's talk about that service then that you're talking about here, because this nonprofit Light the Way, I have very, very minimal information on it, and I'm looking forward to learning more. So what can you tell me?
Sure. Okay. So Light the Way was created because of my other company. But the reason that we created Light the Way is because we are out to educate Iowans globally, or I'm not globally, largely for senior citizens that need help, but we really kind of focus on Parkinson's, dementia, VA help. But we do everybody, of course. I would just say that those are our niches. So with that being said, a lot of seniors are falling through the cracks in Iowa. There's over 65,000 people living with dementia alone. And there's no way that I can help 65,000 people. And so we have made it our mission to go across Iowa, and we travel every 2 weeks around Iowa to do a whole educational series on the resources, because caregiver burnout is real. And a lot of families just don't know the way. Our goal is to educate. So then the one person in the family that maybe has the ability to lead their parents or their grandparents through that can ask questions and learn those resources that exist.
And you are coming to our little corner of the world next week, right?
Yes. Yep. Next week on Wednesday, at 4:00 at the Pavilion
At River's Edge. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's going to be a great location, and I'm sure it's going to be a great event. And how have you been letting folks know about it? Obviously, you can be on this show, but how else? Where can people find out the information so they know that they should be there?
Sure. So we have a website, a town hall tour. I can post that too. I don't have the exact thing, but we've been going through hospitals and hosting them in hospitals, newspapers, all of those things. If you Google Light the Way, walking through dementia together, it would pull us up. But I also have a YouTube channel too that we have recordings of past events. So if someone can't make it, of course, we want people to be there so they can ask specific questions and really learn. But there are past recordings on there as well.
How long have you had the nonprofit Light the Way going? How young is it?
Yes. So we started this in February, and we've been just moving every 2 weeks since February.
Mm-hmm. And really hit every corner of the state yet? Do you have a goal of all 99 counties? Is that what you're doing?
We eventually want to, yes. And we have our map kind of figured out until December of this year, and we are just moving around. But there have been towns that have reached out and said, "Will you come here?" So we are getting excited about that, as far as people actually reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, will you come to our library or our hospital and host an event?"
How long should folks block off in their calendar for this? You said it started at 4, but how much time will they be there?
So that's a great question. It's about 2.5 hours, and we do serve some light refreshments. So sandwiches, fruits, cheese, drinks, just to keep people refreshed. But yes, it's 2.5 hours. We don't like to rush all of the information, but even when we get through 2.5 hours of information, it still feels like that was rushed, because there's so much that people need to know.
And there are, as you said, with over 65,000 people living with dementia now just in our state. And there has to be so many stories that you have heard since you started this and been out learning more about what reality is across Iowa.
Absolutely. The people with dementia are so vulnerable, and their caregivers are so burnt out. And I don't think that we have done a good job at being able to teach and educate those caregivers and their families on what all of the resources are that exist for them. I've ran into people that didn't even know what Medicaid was. And so they would put their parent into an assisted living or a nursing home or memory care. And have their social security and their pension paying for that, but then the kids were, paying for the rest of it, or just stuff like that, that they didn't know that there were other resources for them to be able to have the state and the government's help to be able to supplement there. So that has been a big deal. But the stories and the amount of things that we run into, to be honest with you, it's sad. It is very sad. And that's why we've made this nonprofit and our mission to go around Iowa to help people, because truly people are lost. They don't know what to do and they don't know who to call.
And this is one of those cases too that while you can hope that it never happens to your family or to you personally, it does to a lot of people. And this is it's important to prepare, even if we don't have somebody specifically in our family right now that is dealing with some kind of dementia or with Alzheimer's. That doesn't mean that this wouldn't be information you could use later.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, correct. That is absolutely correct. None of us can predict what our outcome is going to look like. And unfortunately, while dementia is not a normal part of aging, sadly, a lot of us end up with dementia. And so it is a big deal. And when we start talking about the benefits, it's also very expensive. I mean, memory care is not a cheap thing, whether you have in-home coming in or someone has to go into a memory care unit. It is not a cheap diagnosis to get. And so looking forward, if you have to get on Medicaid to be able to help pay for those places, there is a 5-year look back. And I don't think people realize that you need to be planning for all of this way in advance to make sure that, like, for example, if grandpa has a whole farm and it's, a family farm and he gets dementia, if you don't plan appropriately, then that whole farm might have to pay for his care. And that would wipe out generations, down the road of farming and so forth. So making sure that these folks know that you need to get things aligned and get your ducks in a row before someone ends up with a diagnosis, because after they end up with a diagnosis, it's potentially too late.
If you're comfortable sharing this information, where did your passion for this come from?
All right. So my degree is in social services, human services, and I was working in hospital settings, and I just felt like things kept falling through the cracks. And when you're working in hospital settings and in, senior care spaces, you have to stay like politically correct all the time. There you have bosses and you have to follow the rules, and I always push back on the rules. And if something doesn't make sense to me, it just doesn't set right. I said, I'm going to law school when I didn't like the way things were going, or, things that I saw. So I went to law school, and then I realized that I didn't like law school because the government is just as rigid, I guess. Is that a good word we're going to use for it? Yeah. So
That's fine.
I dropped out of law school and said, it's too slow. I don't understand why things have to take that long of a process. Someone is suffering, but you're telling me a court date is 6 months down there. That just doesn't make sense to me. And so then I said, I'm taking so much stress home to my kids and my family. I need to just find something else. This career doesn't pay enough for the amount of stress that I'm taking home, to be honest with you. So I got into real estate, but again, I found myself, I did great, and I'm still in real estate. Sales were amazing. It created a life that I never thought I could have, and I couldn't have if I just worked in that space. But I always went back to the senior citizens and helping people on the social service side. So I began to help people as they were selling their house, that they didn't know what to do with the clutter. I mean, we're so busy now that if you have 5 kids and mom and dad, and they need to move somewhere, you have 5 kids that are now fighting about who's doing the most work, who needs to do what. You have 3 that live out of state. Mom and dad want to split everything up, 5 ways. So all of a sudden this dynamic comes that now children are fighting. And I don't even think that's what parents want, but that's what I was running into. And so I just created a business, Golden Concierge, out of helping people move their parents from their homes into senior communities. And we would, figure out how they wanted to decorate their apartment. We would figure out, what would fit, and do all of the work for them and take the stress off of the family. So then the kids can still be kids. Those kids are usually grandparents. And so they're not missing soccer games on the weekends of their grandkids. And so just helping the whole family dynamic became really fulfilling to me, that we were just figure it out people. So after it turned into that, so now we're selling their house and we're moving them into a senior community, helping them get everything cleared out. Then we started doing Medicaid apps. And so my partner, Tasha, on my team worked for Emmanuel and Pace for a long time. So she is a genius at doing Medicaid apps. She joined my team, and now that's what she does is we work together on figuring out how to make everything Medicaid compliant, the spend down process, if they have a big chunk of money or they have annuities or 401k. A lot of times the state and those communities will just tell you you have to spend it down when you don't really have to spend it down. You can turn it into a Medicaid annuity, so then it's an income rather than a spend down. I know I'm losing you on this, Todd. Just stay with
I'm
me
with
here.
you. I'm with you.
So a lot of moving parts, and having the right partners on my team has turned it into an umbrella. And that's what we advertise is when we have a real estate agent, we have someone that's knows the senior space and we know what to ask for. A lot of the senior communities, they don't lie. I don't want to say that any of them have ever just like straight up, and I don't think they do it. I think they just highlight the perks of their communities. I don't want, they maybe omit um, a lot of things when they're telling them about the communities. And unfortunately, families don't know the questions to ask. And so us knowing those communities, we know the right questions to ask. We know what the financials look like. And so we're just putting people in spaces that they're not going to run out of money and then have to move out or so forth. So those are all the things that we're doing, plus the Medicaid piece and then the move out. The one thing that kept happening, though, is all of our clients kept getting scammed. And so it became very apparent to me that how vulnerable seniors are to these scams, it is scary. And the statistics are is last year, $4 billion in scams came out of people 65 and older. So 4 billion, 65 and older. That was the statistics.
These online scams you're talking about?
All kinds of scams, romance scams, the Amazon package, the parking tickets, the toll. We can go through all of them. But yeah, and that's only what's accounted for. A lot of our clients that have dementia, they didn't even know they were getting scammed, unfortunately. It was the bank that caught it. And so we added on a layer to our services that I hired a bookkeeper, and we have a whole system in place that we watch people's finances for them, because it usually starts out with the scammer will take $1 and then they'll take $500 and then they'll take $1,000 and then all of a sudden they take $48,000. And that really happened to someone. It was just this slow roll. And so we have systems in place to be able to catch that $1. So, it stops there. Because a lot of our clients come to us through like the police department or banks, because they are kind of the front line. Dr. Shaw in town, he works for Broadlands and he specializes in dementia. And he just made a post on his LinkedIn that said, and I kind of knew this. I thought it was funny that he posted this because this is what we're teaching on. But a lot of times a brain scan isn't the first thing that catches a diagnosis for dementia. It's money. So it's bankers and tellers that, are they aware of these things and do they know when to flag it? And so we have also, the nonprofit, we've been going into banks and doing some training with them. Like, would you know if something was wrong with, Mr. and Mrs. Smith by some of their financial stuff, if they're coming in and they're confused, or, you see weird things, because those romance scams, man, they'll get a lonely little senior that's just needs someone to talk to.
Yeah, well, they get college football players. I mean, they're very sophisticated. So when you're dealing with somebody who, for the majority of their life, didn't have this internet and cell phone stuff coming in, because you talk about those specific scams, I get them. I see the toll booth thing or whatever that I pass through some toll in a state
Illinois,
that I've been in.
Yeah.
So or they tell me that I've done it in Iowa. I'm like, where was I on a toll road in Iowa?
Right.
Yeah.
Where is that at?
If you have a leak, a clogged drain, or even if you're planning a big remodel, Waldstein Plumbing in Council Bluffs has you covered. With fast, reliable service and expert craftsmanship, handling everything from small repairs to major installations. They're locally owned and trusted and take pride in doing the job right the first time. Residential or commercial, big or small, when plumbing problems strike, they're the ones to call. Visit waldsteinplumbing.com. Service Master Restore by Schmader knows it can be hard to get things back to normal when you've suffered serious property damage due to flooding, fire, or smoke, and that can oftentimes lead to mold. And you may be left with all sorts of questions about how to get your home or business back to normal. It's easy. You give Cindy Schmader a call with Service Master Restore by Schmader. Her phone number, 402-339-9911. For those of us who have a lot of other stuff that we're dealing with, and the brain may not be working quite as well as it used to. Yeah, I can see how that would be a huge thing. And you having that business, obviously, you recognize that wasn't enough, which led you into starting the nonprofit so you could reach even more people.
Exactly right. So, like I said, there's over, 65,000 people in Iowa with just dementia. So that's not even the rest of the people that haven't been diagnosed, or that not every senior citizen that has a cognitive decline, because it's, most of senior citizens, and we'll get there too. They get scammed. They need help. A lot of our seniors, they're either orphan seniors or they just have a busy family, and that's really it all boils down to. We have become so busy with club sports and all of these different things, our generation, that our parents are busy helping us. It's just we're not able to do as much, I think, for our elderlies as what we used to maybe in the 90s, because our life has just changed for all of us. And being able to come in and really help people, but also the complication of it. There's so many complicated things. And between you and I and your whole podcast, I think the government sometimes keeps things confusing. And I don't know, I don't want to say purposely, but it's confusing. That's all there is to it. The Medicaid apps, Medicare, VA benefits, all of it is confusing. If you don't have someone walking you through it that does it every day, people give up. I mean, I'm trying to get my grandma VA benefits right now, and I'm working with a VA, what I am for other things, but he's that for the VA. And he is getting just as frustrated as I am with, because it keeps getting sent back and then you have to appeal. And my grandma has said, "Can you just give up? Let's just be done." And me, I'm like, "Oh, hell no, grandma. There's no way we're giving up." But she's the one that would give up. And so it makes me sad that most seniors would just say, just throw in the towel and be done with it. And that's not what we want, because my grandma deserves those benefits, just like our other seniors deserve all of the other things. They paid in years for these things. So,
And I'm also guessing that in a lot of times, some of the stuff you're helping with, they're not even aware that this is an option for them.
no, no. And really, I think a lot of people aren't even aware of us. And so, like, an example would be, um, like I said, a lot of our clients don't even, the people that are our clients are not the people that we're specifically reaching out to, because they're not checking emails. They don't know we exist on social media, and it takes a village. And so, for example, if you have a neighbor that you see, she's confused, she wanders in her yard, you guys kind of keep track of her because, Mrs. Smith has Alzheimer's, but she doesn't have any kids that are around. It would be the neighbors that need to be able to get a hold of us to approach Mrs. Smith on, do we need to get her in for a check for a cognitive decline? Because if nobody's advocating for her, is her doctor's office actually doing a cognitive test on her? Probably not, if no one's advocating for that. And so it really takes a village around some of these people to be able to say something when they see something. Recently, I've heard of a story here in Des Moines of a lady that was wandering around in her yard, and she was her eyesight wasn't great. And I think there was a large cognitive decline there. But they found her husband dead in the house, and she didn't know. Yeah. And so, but she just, nothing connected. And how long was that? The details of that really freaked me out. She's not one of our clients. It was just, I heard that through the grapevine, but she should have been one of our clients, because we would have figured everything out for her. I mean, long before. And I mean, another one of our clients, somehow she was just living independently, and she was scammed last February for a lot of money, and APS and Aging Resources got involved. I don't know what happened. It was the bank that flagged it. The cops were there, and that's who the cops had reached out to, or APS and Aging Resources. And then it happened again, and the bank flagged it in March because she was sending massive, $7,000, $8,000 checks out to these scammers that were just calling her. And so finally, the cops reached out to us, and then we got involved. We got her an emergency conservatorship because she didn't have any family around, no kids, nothing. And then we took care of everything. We got her into, I mean, she was denied from independent living. She was denied from assisted. The only thing she was accepted into was a locked memory care unit. That's how far her memory was. And she was driving. She had a car. She was driving that scares me, that somehow we've missed enough things that that this woman was just, and she didn't remember anything past like 5 minutes. I mean, that's how short term her memory was. And when we first got there, we would be there for, an hour, and her phone would probably ring 25 times of scammers calling. And what happens is if a scammer gets your money, you become a hot spot for other scammers. So they go tell all their scamming friends about it, or they come up, with all these other charities, and they just keep calling. And that's exactly what they were doing. I mean, her phone was just ringing off the hook. And so we disconnected her landline, got her a completely like secured phone that the only thing that would come through were numbers that we saved. Like I said, to get her into the memory care unit, we had to get an emergency conservator. So we had to go in front of a judge to be able to do that. And we did it all just we just know the process, right? For someone outside of that, that would be very confusing. They wouldn't know what to do, but it's what we do every day to get people to a safe spot as soon as possible. I know that there's a lot of seniors out there that need our help, but they may have a neighbor or a family member or someone that can help them, which is why we're doing the education.
You bring up a really good point. It's something that I hadn't thought of, that there are plenty of folks that are aging, have 70s, 80s, or whatever, and they're by themselves. They don't have anybody in their life. I've known people like that in my life, thinking back. And an older gentleman that I remember, and he passed away a long time ago, but he was in his 80s back when I was in my 20s, and up at the cafe 3 times a week because he didn't have anybody there or 3 times a day, but didn't have anybody at home to cook with or to prepare meals. And it was just him. And if something had happened to him, I wonder how long it would have taken. And especially with what you're talking about with memory care and with dementia and with Alzheimer's, that just turns the volume up.
For sure. And with the boomers aging, it's scary in the next, 10 to 20 years, how many more people are going to have this diagnosis, and what are we supposed to do? As I said, I was in real estate. And so my dream would be to so like in the Netherlands, they have these dementia villages. They're super cool. And I really wish that we could get them over here. And I know Wisconsin has announced that they have a couple. But I would love to be able to get one here in Iowa. The dementia village, just there's a lot of dementia folks that get a little bit aggressive or agitated because we're not coming to their world. They don't understand ours. And so how do we resort back to, where their brain is at now? And that's exactly what these dementia villages do. And so they're just designed around, whatever it looked like in the maybe 50s and 60s of life then. And so that keeps their anxiety and their agitations and all of that down. So if someone hears this, if there's someone that's just sitting out there with money and a lot of land, give me a call. Let's get this built. I have the plans. I'm ready to go.
S&B Country Kennel is the top spot in Southwest Iowa when you need to know your dog will receive only the best. Boarding, daycare, grooming, self-washing, training, and even a membership available to a dog park over an acre in size. S&B Country Kennel also has rescue dogs, so check with them about adoption possibilities. sbcountrykennel.com. That's country spelled with a K. Located just west of I-29 on Bungie Avenue, south of Council Bluffs. Tired of hot rooms, harsh glare, and zero privacy? Tint Advantage has the solution. With advanced window film, you can cut heat before it even enters your home or business, reduce glare on screens, and keep your natural light in view. And with smart film, your glass goes from clear to private in seconds. Total control, right at your fingertips. Comfort, privacy, and efficiency, all in one upgrade. Visit tintadvantage.com and take control of your space today.
But yeah, that would be ideal because if you have we'll go with a male. It happens with female, but mostly a male, like a sexually aggressive male that doesn't know what he's doing, and he is aggressive. Communities can't take him. I mean, it's a liability to the staff. However, then he's at home with his wife or his kids, and all of a sudden they become burnout because again, nursing won't come into the home because there's a liability. And so it just becomes this spiral. And typically and sadly, caregiver burnout is real. They don't take care of themselves. They don't go to the doctor because who's going to come over and sit with their husband? So they tend to die first. And then we have a huge problem. So these are all of the issues that are real and that we should all be afraid of, because none of us are getting out of getting old unless we die first. So
Yeah, that's a hard truth, and it's also something I just remember saying yesterday that we all have an expiration date. We don't know when it is, but as you're saying, sometimes there's a lot of things that can go on in between now and then that we could use some help. For anyone who's planning on attending on Wednesday or is starting to think about it, what do they need to prepare for? Anything? Bring anything? What's the expectation for that?
So, the Alzheimer's Association partners with us, so they'll be there as well. And we bring, we'll have papers, pens. You don't have to worry about all of that. Really, just listening ears, because again, everything is recorded, and so we send that out to the guest. And the reason that we record it too is because that we know that they cannot take notes on all of this. If they're listening to what we're saying, they're not able to write at the same time. So just being able to come, listen, stay engaged, ask a lot of good questions. If you have questions now, just write them down and ask them when you're there. We love getting those live questions. So yeah, that's it. Just bring yourself.
Is this a ticketed event in any way? Is it something that you want people to pre-register for?
We do have a register that, or a QR code that we like people to register on, just so we know for food how much to bring. But other than that, no, it's a free event. So just let us know if you're coming, if you want to eat.
Well, I tell you what, send me that QR code. You've got my email now. So send that over and we'll make sure that we get that into the show notes with what it is that we're doing here. So if anybody's watching, they can have access to that and try to make it as easy as possible. I'm a big believer in in easy and,
Yes.
and not making things complicated. Well, Liz,
Not to interrupt
yes.
you, but if you do not have access or you can't figure that QR code out, you just come. Those are complicated and confusing. Do not make that a hurdle between someone coming and not coming. Just show up.
All right, perfect. And all of that happening Wednesday at 4, and that'll be at the Rivers Edge Pavilion in Council Bluffs. And this is Liz Keller, founder of Golden Concierge and also the nonprofit Light the Way. Thank you so much for your time, and also thanks for reaching out to begin with. And I'm glad that you were able to find me and make that connection, say, hey, this guy is he's got the audience where we're headed, so let's go talk there. And I'm grateful that you did that.
Yeah, thank you, Todd, for having us. And we're really excited to come to Council Bluffs. And hopefully we can get a lot of people there that need us.
And also, we thank you very much for watching this episode of Council Bluffs Today. If you would do me a favor, click that like button, the follow, share, any of those things. That's going to help us reach even more people and share the message, just like Liz told us here today. Again, Liz Keller, thank you much. Thank you for watching. My name is Todd Studer, and we will be back very soon with another episode.
Thank you.